of owning a cafe and other heroic deeds by Beware the Chistero. Chapter 93. Extinguished. Dobby had known from the second he had clapped eyes on the American prick who'd been side-glancing his guardian that he did not like him. And now his gaze narrowed as he shrugged off Tomra and handed him another 1,000 yen. Keep the change. He couldn't stop his glare. Who the fuck was this asshole? Then his child's hat retrieved, he strode out of the Nodaneko and began approaching Toshiji. The tots had noticed all of this by now, and had wandered towards the bay windows to watch, their little mouths offering questions and suggestions, whilst his mother similarly looked on.
That's shield, Davido,
his partner murmured, those cherry eyes of his slanting from him to the kitchen's door as he whispered,
He used to date Toshiji, so Shigaraki had him monitored.
He used to what? Feeling a sudden flare of anger erupt within him, he also looked to where his guardian was still diligently working away, the urge to protect the man, setting him on edge.
Dobby, you need to calm down.
Oh, he blinked before with a bulk he extinguished the blue flames, haloing his hair with a bitten-off curse, whilst his mother, curiosity melting to worry, approached the service bar with Atoshi, Izuku, and Katsuki, their eyes wide as they regarded him before returning their attention to what they could see beyond the customers lounging outside beneath the parasols. "Who's that?" the little blonde asked, his head turning back and forth from the teens to the trio. The girl now perched atop All Might's caped shoulder, her smile resplendent as they chatted. David, too, was laughing, his arms opened for a hug which the number one pro returned.
Dobby!
Grunting, his hands now moving to pat the fire across his shoulders out, he folded his arms and settled for scowling, whilst Tomura leaned into his side, his own frown deepening. That's someone who Toshiji knew when he lived in America, he told the Tatsun similarly pale-haired woman, his brows furrowing a little. They sure seem friendly, huh? A similarly red-eyed 8-year-old mused, his arms folding haughtily. I don't like that guy.
Amen, kid.
Boys, Ray juggled out, her tone sheepish, whilst she gently ruffled Katsuki's spiky locks. They probably haven't seen each other for a very long time, and from what I heard earlier, they clearly don't speak Japanese. So it must be quite a relief to see someone they know who can talk to them freely, right? She tried to soothe. Shouldn't we, tell Shoni? Hitoshi asked, his features concerned. Having his partner's ex show up is probably something he should know about, isn't it?
Let's just keep an eye on them for now,
the K-Quirk user offered.
Oka-san is right. We don't know what's happening, and there's no law against people talking and hugging now, are there?
Rumbling under his breath, Dobby leaned against the counter, his turquoise glare fixed on the brunette's head. Fine, he breathed, but if that prick starts getting too friendly, I'll bet her off. Skidding to a stop outside of his favorite place, hands down, Toshinori had all but 5 seconds to get his nerves under control as Melissa, Uncle Alma, I've missed you! Beautiful, wonderful Melissa, whose smile could rival the sun, whose laughter rivaled the bell which jangled above the cafe's door, bolted towards him in glittery sandals, her flaxen hair streaming out like waves of silk as she launched herself at him. I've missed you too, Buttercup. Look at how grown up you are. So that he could catch her and bundle her form into his arms, just like he always did since she was old enough to walk. It's not me who's grown, Uncle Matt. You're gonna be bigger than a skyscraper soon with how tall you are. God, regardless of how this wonderful little girl came to be alive, he can only ever feel love for her. You want to go up higher, huh? She wasn't innocent, after all, and not at all aware of what had transpired between himself and her father before she was born. Yes, woo! Born because David's father demanded that the family business stay in the family, that a child, regardless of gender, thank God, be brought up to carry on their good works for the good of their country and the world. That David do the honorable thing, marry well, play up to the cameras, submit himself to the greater good, and conform, surrender to what would improve the economy, give himself to a woman he didn't love, and make the best of it. Toshinori, hi! God, seeing the man in person, the man he'd not seen outside of video calls for the past 5 years, was like taking a knife to the gut. Bev, what a surprise. Hi.
And twisting
I wish I'd have known you were coming, he said when the other stepped in for a hug that he returned on impulse, a hug that was much tighter from the slenderer man's side of things than his own.
Oh, Uncle Matt, it wouldn't have been a surprise if you'd known, silly.
The blue-eyed angel on his shoulder giggled as her father pulled away.
We've come to invite you back home with us, too.
Blinking, the world slumming down around him, Toshinori looked from her to the man now rubbing at the back of his neck sheepishly, those cobalt eyes endearing, pleading.
We thought it might be nice for you to finally take that vacation you always talked about having once. That man was behind bars where he should be.
The genius inventor mused with a hapless little shrug.
Oh, we've really missed you, you know? And I think it might be wise for you to maybe get away for a little while to clear your head.
He added, the hot summer air momentarily whipping around them, fluttering his cape, and the beautiful flower beds Mimi-chan took care of. Dave,
You don't have to answer straight away, you know?
The other chuckled, a clever hand gently resting on his bicep. He had a mental flinch at the motion.
Toshi, Uncle Matt, are you okay?
I'm sorry, he said carefully, the smile he'd been fighting to keep leaving whilst he gently lowered Melissa to the ground, her expression owlish while she bulked between the two of them. David, I know you mean well, but as my friend, you're stepping out of line.
No, Toshinori, as your friend, I'm trying to help you see sense.
The other countered, a hand gesturing back to the cafe where, although there were a few customers sitting outside, unless they had hearing-based quirks, they wouldn't pick up the details.
Just stop for a second and think,
the American urged, his shoulders straightening, their eyes locking. He tried before, but the blink, he seemed to realize that the child was still there.
Melissa, sweetie, here, take Daddy's keys and go wait in the car for me.
She's welcome to go back into the cafe, Mr. Shield. Stiffening, the blonde felt an odd mixture of relief, shock, terror, and joy cascade across his psyche as Shouta walked out to meet them, his hair blowing wild and free, the black carrier-strapped apron immaculate whilst he approached, his smile soft as he regarded the child. It'll be much too hot in the car for her, and my second oldest ward speaks excellent English, as you've seen. The older children would very much like to meet her and share a plate of cookies, too, if that's all right.
Oh, well, that's... And Daddy, may I, please? We didn't get to see the cats either.
The blonde chirped, her little form bouncing with excitement. Swallowing thickly as David nodded, his expression stricken, he gestured for the girl to go, her right hand up and waving at a few of the tots waiting by the opened door with Tomura, all of them waving and smiling back. That was... Now then, it seems as though you two have a lot to talk about, so why don't we also head inside? You're free to use my family's apartment if you like. No one will bother you there. Sucking in a breath, his eyes widening and body actually jerking, Toshinori made to reach out to his partner, to the man who'd brought into his world, the man he knew without a shadow of a doubt he loved truly and deeply.
Mr. Aizawa, David breathed. I'm sorry, I should have introduced myself properly earlier.
Yes, you should have. The eatery owner cut in mildly, those dark eyes observing the brunette carefully. You also shouldn't have shoved the money at my ward, but seeing how tense the situation seems to be, I'll let that slide, since he hasn't taken any offense. He offered mildly with a little shrug before, to his surprise. So were you coming? The raven-haired beauty chuffed, that right hand easily reaching for and capturing his own, those pale hard-working fingers providing a reassuring squeeze. I've got some muffins that need taste testing too while you're at it. He'd been halfway through decorating a decadently layered Johnny's sponge when he had heard the foreign tot call out, the jangle of his cater to bell loud as she ran, happily from the sound of it, through the rapidly opened barrier, and when the door went again, he didn't really pay it any mind. It looked as though the friend they were waiting for had arrived then. Humming to himself, he cast a critical eye over the muffins baking as they should, the scent of the toffee apples he'd made, mixing in with the other aromas of sweet baked goods. Ha! Was there anything better than watching the logical processes of carefully weighed ingredients, thoroughly mixed per specifications, cooking correctly and transforming from a sludgy mix of formerly separate things into something warm, savory, or sweet, delicious and nourishing? It was poetry! Shoni! Blinking, the sound of the kitchen door being shoved open alerting him to something being wrong even before Izuku, Hitoshi, and Katsuki appeared, their eyes wide. Shouta turned away from the trays of biscuits he'd just freed from the oven, his brows rising. Boys, he asked, the three of them suddenly crowding his legs. Hey, whoa. Are you alright? What? That man, the American guy, he's outside with Toshiji, and Toshiji looks real... I don't know, but something's not right. His ward professed whilst Katsuki rapidly nodded, and Izuku Koala hugged his leg like he used to do when he was anxious. When he was worried. Oh, hell no! It was bad enough that someone had intruded on his partner's peace, but he'd be damned if someone upset his children. Gently ruffling the tot's emerald hair, he smiled at those teary eyes before regarding his other boys, both who'd come such a long way from when he'd first met them just over 2 years ago, their distress playing high in his mind. Thank you for telling me, he told them, his eyes flicking to Dobby and Tomura, the pair now crowding the doorway. Dobby, can you put these cookies on the cooling rack for me, please? He asked, his hands lifting his paw print cap off his head and bestowing it at Abizuku's, the boy now looking up at him starry-eyed. Oh, but the muffins will be done in 2 minutes as well, so could you see to them for me? He furthered whilst walking towards the blonde and iris-haired children, his hands ruffling their locks. Yeah, sure. His oldest ward blinked as he and his partner similarly received a shoulder squeezed as he passed them. His body now stood behind a service bar, his eyes regarding the trio outside. Hey, if you're gonna do what you do best, know that prick with your high and mighty billionaire Davido shield also showed his money at Tomura too, alright? Stiffening at the words, he turned to the decay quirk user, who nudged his partner's shoulders with a huff. It's fine! His head shaking ruefully whilst the older teen ushered the Smalls back through the service area and into the eatery proper. So long as you're certain, he murmured, a hand reaching out to cup that pale, delicate jawline, the other leaning into the touch with a pleased sigh. Now, if you'll excuse me, he furthered, his dark gaze zipping back to the window just as the brunette gestured their way. I think I see a hero in need of rescuing, a man in need of a reality check, and a little girl who could probably do with some friends to make her feel welcome while we sort out whatever this mess is. He huffed, his eyes rolling as he followed the kids out and into the cafe, his hand reaching for the door. Billionaire or not, no one messed with the people he cared about and got away with it. Getting them inside and upstairs had been a relatively simple thing, and the pair now sat around his kotatsu table. He grabbed a pitcher of lemonade, 3 glasses, and joined them. So, Mr. Shield, he began, the brunette looking a little unnerved. Good, as he regarded him. What brings you all the way to Japan? If it's not too intrusive of me to ask.
Oh, well, I had some business in Australia, as you see, and with not having the chance to visit in so long.
The other stumbled a little, his lips trying to smile as he took a deep drag from his glass.
That's just delicious, he complimented. What brand is it?
It's my own recipe, he replied calmly, his shoulders mildly shrugging as Toshinori's head looked from him to David, his large form kneeling stiffly whilst he watched them like someone who'd placed a large bet on a tennis match. The twist of mint is from the syrup I make fresh every morning, but we're not here to discuss such things, are we? He mused.
No.
The inventor returned, a flash of light crossing his glasses as he sighed.
Mr. Aizawa, I really haven't meant to intrude upon your time, and I will apologize to that young man before I leave today.
He furthered, his shoulders slumping a little.
I feel as though I've made, a few pretty big mistakes today.
He intended to chuckle, those cobalt eyes momentarily shifting to the blonde, who stiffened a little more when their gazes met.
And the biggest of those mistakes was to come here unannounced and impose myself on you like this, he murmured.
Then, his own body tensing a touch, he watched the American's whole expression and demeanor change when he took in Toshinori's form. Shit! He knew about their star-crossed romance, of course. His partner had confessed to him on the Ferris wheel after their first kiss. Photographs of them similarly inhabited the blonde's penthouse apartment, and yes, they'd talked about him, what they'd been to each other from time to time. However, it wasn't until now that he remembered that the billionaire had divorced last year. Divorced from the woman he'd married because he'd had to. Divorced and single, the man he'd claimed to love, now in a new relationship, You came for him, he heard himself say, his tone odd even to his own ears, the other men balking at his words. That's why you're here, isn't it? He furthered, the brunette blushing darkly, whilst the broader of their number paled, his head shaking. Shouta, it's not what you...
Yes, I did.
Feeling a sigh escape him at the American's quiet admittance, he watched Toshinori's mouth snap shut, a flicker of the power he seemed to always be in control of crackle about him. Huh? He hadn't known. Mr. Aizawa, with respect, you're a very young man, the genius stated, those cobalt eyes now locked onto his in a way he assumed wasn't meant to be condescending. And for what little I know about your relationship with him, he's the only person you've been with romantically, yes? He stated. And not only that, but you like your quiet little life here, don't you? You don't have a presence on social media outside of this cafe, and as marvelous as this place is, and you are, he's a symbol of peace.
David!
He needs a partner who can stand at his side, help him to shoulder the weight of the world. A world that loves him. A world that might not take too kindly to you taking him off the market. It'll lower his popularity with the fans who dream of being with him. It'll make him less desirable. He needs someone who can handle that.
David!
No, he has to hear this, Toshi. He needs to understand that whatever little romance you've ramped him up in is a pipe dream. The intruder cut in, his eyes narrowing. You're not an ordinary man. You have a legacy, an image that you need to think about and protect, or everything you've done, everything you've worked so hard to build will be...
What about him as a person?
Watching the other's disbelieving face snapping at him, Shouta pinned him with a glare he reserved purely for dickheads who deserved it. What?
You're right, of course, Mr. Shield. I'm not media savvy. My community and my family will always come first, no matter what.
He told her before, his dark eyes moving to the number one.
But you're wrong to think that Toshinori is a part of that. His fame, his image, the good he does, the people he saves. Yes, that's all important. And yes, they're all a part of what makes him wonderful. But they're only a part of him.
He affirmed, his head then turning back to that guest.
And it saddens me truly to realize that you can't see that.
He doled in, that previously self-righteous face paling, his eyes shrinking in shock.
Because if you did, you wouldn't be using his big heart and sense of duty against him. You wouldn't be trying to emotionally blackmail him by making slights at me, either.
He continued, the other gasping.
I've met a lot of cruel and insensitive people in my life, Mr. Shield. I was raised by one, and have dealt with others since.
He furthered, the older man's head shaking in denial.
Strangely, they all seem to think that they were right to do what they did, too.
No, that's not what I...
But in some strange way, I can understand what you're doing and why you're doing it.
He offered, a little chuckle leaving him, his gaze returning to Toshinori.
He's definitely worth fighting for it. For the record, I don't own him.
He stated.
He's his own man, and well, I've said my piece. He knows how I feel about him.
He continued before pulling himself into a stand.
I'll leave you two to talk this out.
Fundamentally, Dobby knew that he shouldn't be sneaking up the back stairs. But
if anyone was trying to hurt Sho, then they'd have to answer to him. Plus, having the fierce wing quirk user on hand meant that those cunning crimson feathers could either ferry them all the way back down into the cat maintenance room without anyone being the wiser, or effectively pump that rich prick through the window. Accidentally, of course. Was it wrong for him to pray for the latter? Do either of you understand what they're saying? The irate hero whispered as they sat at the top of the back stairs, the sounds of the English conversation filtering through the barrier as they lightly leaned against it, her hands rapidly texting across her phone. Only every other word, the sandy blonde murmured, his ear pressed against the door. Something about fighting, I think, A cat that doesn't sound too happy either. He added, those amber eyes narrowing, his wings puffed out behind the three of them, and ready to fly them back on the stairs if needed. Shit, Dobby grumbled. That bastard is lucky that his daughter is such a small. He seethed. She's making me think twice about dealing with him. You're also lucky that Shouta tells you better than that, the woman next to him gripped, their eyes briefly meeting. And that I'm here to step in for you with a pro-hero license that can be flashed to the police force if my quirk somehow activated, knocks him out, and led to him being concussed. She winked. Sharing a chuckle with Keigo, the three of them snapped their mouths shut when, "What that? She's up to gun!" Rang out of the room, the cry followed by the swooshing sound which always accompanied all my swiftest movements. What was going on in there? Feeling Toshinori at his side had never felt so good, despite the way his heart clenched at seeing those tears upon that handsome face.
David!
The man breathed, a warm, solid arm roping around his waist, holding him close.
Aizawa Shouta is many things, but little and ordinary are words that you should never associate with him, and I'll never forgive you if you do.
He stated, his shoulders straightening.
He's strong beyond measure, carrying beyond words, and out of the two of us, I'm the one who isn't worthy of him, not the other way around. Toshi, he breathed, that's not. But it is true, Shouta. I mean every word of it, and more.
He said, those neon eyes locked with his, whilst he turned to him fully, those handsome angular features now swamped by warmth and adoration.
I'm in total and complete awe of you. You have changed so much in so little time. You have changed me in ways that I could never have imagined.
He offered, then his body standing tall, his gaze narrowed but not unkind. He regarded David, who was still sat, his countenance pale, carefully, his tone filled with conviction.
David, you are a dear friend, the father of my goddaughter.
He admitted, the inventor's form bulging at the words.
I will always treasure the days we shared, and I will always consider you my friend, even after today. So long as you've learned your lesson, so long as you apologize for what you've said, how you've said it, and treat him and his family, all of them, with the utmost respect.
He said, the arm that held him pulling him closer still.
And although you may have been my first love, Shouta is my last, if you'll have me.
Blinking at the words, that same warm, fluttering feeling that inhabited his chest whenever he was around Toshinori kicking up a notch. He watched a little bewilderedly as the other's free hand reached to the back of his neck, not to rub it, but to rifle through the secret pocket sewn there that he'd shown him once. He'd always wondered where the other kept his keys, credit cards, and the like in that tight, form-fitting suit. Then, his eyes widening, he watched as the blonde sunk down on one knee. There was a little red box in his hand that he'd opened.
Shouta-kun, I've been carrying this around with me for the past 3 weeks, and I know that this Saturday is of paramount importance, and I completely, wholeheartedly understand if you need time to think about it, or if you think it's too soon, or...
There was a slender gold band in that box, its circular form highly polished, but not over the top.
Yes.
He heard himself say.
Yes.
Toshinori tried his tone slacks with a mixture of awe and disbelief.
Yes, as in you need time to think, or... Yes.
He repeated, his heart full, his hands cupping the large sun-kissed one which cradled the box.
Yes, I'll marry you, Toshi. I love you too, you know? Yup.
Balking, the trio snapped their heads to the door, which barred the back stairs, their eyes widening as Namori wailed